It is very good. I mean, it's very different and stuff. I mean, I really like to be in Sweden because I kind of end up in Sweden also because of my work and my interests, like about property and copyright and piracy. And Sweden is just like where these things started kicking and happening, and it's just like where everything started changing. So, I mean, for me, it's perfect being with this in a place that everybody has an opinion about and like a stand about intellectual property and stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it's very conservative or not, but they have it. You know, in some places people just don't talk about that and that. So I found it very interesting to live, and I happen to be in a group of people that it's very interesting, and I guess it's not really the average Swede. So sometimes I get confronted more with like the average, you know, society, the whole, and I'm very shocked. I'm like, oh, I thought everybody was just like here socialist. So, but it's good. I mean, I really like it, that contrast and like the diversity that there is. I think it's a very controversial place. Sweden is like a very controversial society, and I like contradictions.
And does that affect your work with, you say that you work a lot with property and with copyright, and so did you find that your work took on a big change when you moved to Sweden, or did you start to find aspects, pull out more interesting aspects?
Actually, I was doing more work about copyright before moving to Sweden. Then I moved here to Sweden, and I mean, mostly since I'm here, I've been working more about with markets as a material, like a financial markets as a material itself, and learning a lot about Sloyd. Here in Sweden, and traditional techniques and that kind of stuff, and somehow mixing both. Like, so I'm working right now on that, but I still I mean, I'm still, I guess, talking about property, and but intellectual property is just like, I mean, it doesn't exist. We just need to ignore it. It's just like that's it, you know. I don't want to perpetuate the debate on it. I'd rather ignore it. And so, but I used to do way more work about copyright before moving to Sweden, and like I met a lot of people in Sweden related with the Piran, you know, that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's for me, it's a lot of inspiration in that debate and that culture, the copy culture in Sweden. But also all this access to technology in Sweden is incredible. You know, like coding and hacking and that sort of stuff. It's not like art or something weird. Everybody codes and everybody knows how to do electronics. Like, it's just the access to technology, it's very high. So there's a lot of interesting expressions that people don't even consider art, and I think that's okay. You know, I think there's a lot of creativity in Sweden, but it's not framed as either art or design. People is just very creative.
Do you think there's a good outlet for people in Sweden to, like how you say with Fat Lab, you have your online blog, which is really showing everyone's projects, everyone's work, what they're working on. Do you think that there's a gap with that with Sweden, like a online artist community that makes it harder for people to have these distinctions between what is art and what isn't?
I mean, I think in Sweden, what art means is very traditional. Like, even when you apply for grants or go to shows and stuff, it's just very formal, very traditional. But also there is like other things, I mean, especially in music, you know, that like they are like super radical when it comes to music and stuff. I think in fine arts it's very traditional. I don't really fit in there. I never work in Sweden. Like, that's a reality. I never got festivals. I never show my work. Like, for instance, here in Denmark, I always have shows, festivals. It's just like, I think they're very open for other kind of expressions. But in Sweden, the fact that like they might not care about art and they're like more about politics, I guess, makes a place for very interesting things going on, like Planka, you know, and, you know, Piran, these guys that were just making super great art, but they weren't thinking of it as art. Or Planka, that is just like the best politics, but, you know, they just do what they like and have fun, and there is very, so, I don't know, I've been thinking this a lot, and I think it's just in Sweden there is just like another expressions that I never got to know, that are very interesting, they're very creative, but they're just not art, and it's okay too. I guess one of the problems that's happened though is this narrative that there is now that arts need to be entrepreneurial and business and that kind of stuff. I don't think that like for a lot of people works. It's really like a big turn down to thinking that everybody has to be an entrepreneur in their area. It's just like very crazy.
Yeah, and is that one of the reasons why you'd say you're opposed to things like copyright and property law? Because
No. I think just the entrepreneurship is just like exploding now. I don't have any against entrepreneurship. You know, it's good that people start their own stuff and do that. But just the way they frame it is very weird. You know, because I mean, I'm from Mexico, where like illegal economy, and I'm not saying criminal, just informal economy. Poor people is just so entrepreneurial, but they don't get VC capital or because I don't know. This thing that is just like entrepreneurship is going to save our economy, and like if everybody would have amass money by itself. I think it's very sad. That's the real problem, is that like we need to change that model. What I love about Sweden is like you can talk about these things. You can even it's just like there's people interested in this, and there is very smart people and critical people more than smart.
So do you think if there was more of a dialogue about art and creativity and different forms of creativity within Sweden, that might inspire more of an independent art scene?
I think so because I mean the problem is that I feel that there is either this big artists that like are these companies, they are like acting like a company. Even like when I was like taking language courses, they were asking me like, oh, are you an artist, so you have clients? And I was like, what do you mean I have clients? That's very weird. Like strange. And I was like, no, I have a studio and I work there and stuff. So I think would be because of those many expressions because of all this like super interesting way of thinking in Sweden. I think it would be super good to have a real discussion about like if art only needs to be a cultural industry, or if it really needs to be also other things. And who can have access to it, how funding for those productions can be distributed, like it doesn't need to be all this like super fine art, or what are the criteria I don't think there is interesting I don't know anything like FAT or something like that in Sweden, or I mean, Jonas, he's like from Sweden. He does amazing work, like in the internet. He does really good stuff in the internet, and he's from Sweden and stuff. And I didn't knew about him because of Sweden. So yeah, I mean, I think Sweden, it's weird. They have so much internet. There's so much access to technology and stuff. But it's weird that like there is no this position and that. I love Sweden for other reasons though, but when it comes to art practice and that, I'm always like, okay,
You need to speak up. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question or it's clear.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of your exhibition.
Okay,
I'm sure it'll be fabulous.
Yeah. Thank you so much.